What is up, Pacer Nation? Welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace. And joining us now, he has his own Substack. It is bobkravitz.com. The one and only Bob Kravitz. Bob, thanks so much for coming back on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing tremendous. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a fun time to be covering
Yeah,
the
it is.
Pacers right now, and they are in the NBA Finals for the first time in 25 years. But before we get to that, a very important person to Indiana sports, Jim Irsay, passed away, and he had his service today, funeral service that was,
Yeah,
I think it was kind of closed. Not everybody could make it, but if you got an invite, you could be there, and so you got an invite.
I
And
did.
I saw a lot of stories on Twitter about people just saying what a great reflection of Jim's life it was. But I wanted to know from your perspective, how did you think the ceremony went today and just kind of reflect on Jim?
Yeah, it was beautiful. John Mellencamp performed. Kenny Wayne Shepherd and Mike Mills performed. It was just a lovely ceremony, and everybody talked about Jim's generosity and his big heart and the legacy that he will leave. To me, the most important legacy he will leave is the work he's done in the field of mental health and emotional health. So yeah, it was very moving and a great tribute to a terrific guy.
That's awesome to hear. And is there going to be a public service for him as well?
That's what I understand. They're still putting that together, but there will be a public service, some kind of public ceremony, celebration of life that that people can attend. So yeah, that's coming down the pike.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy that his last tweet was about the Indiana Pacers
Isn't that
congratulating.
wild?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I know he'd be very, very happy for Herb Simon and the Simon family and the Indiana Pacers. Yeah, he was a big fan.
When you go back and just look at what happened in this series against the Knicks, the Pacers get it done in 6 games. Being there in the building for game 6, were you in Madison Square Garden when they won in 2000?
No, no, I had just gotten the job in Indianapolis, and they wanted me to come out and cover the series, and I said, I'm not going to make a fool of myself trying to cover a team that I haven't watched all season long.
Hmm.
So I took the summer off basically and came out in August. So no, I was not there. That's a
Gotcha. So this,
long
so
answer
this
to
is your
the short
first
question.
this is your first Eastern Conference Finals, championship you've seen them win then.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I was there in 13 and 14 when they lost to the Heat. But yeah, this is the first. Well, I mean, there hasn't been that many victories. I mean, they've only done it twice
Yeah.
in the 10 tries. So yeah, it's awesome. It's remarkable, and it's great for my business. I'll tell you what, and I'm sure it's good for yours.
Yeah, I mean, people are excited, and that's what we love to see around here. We love to see an excited fan base, and I've been seeing Pacer fans that I've known my whole life that I didn't even know were Pacer fans coming out the woodworks,
Of course.
just tweeting about it, putting it on Facebook, going to the games, dropping some serious money for tickets. They want to be a part of this, and so hopefully this can kind of continue to just build this fan base up and get them more excited for future seasons. But when you look at this finals against the Knicks, I'm just curious, what did you think was the biggest reason the Pacers were able to overcome the New York Knicks, who are very, they're a star-studded starting
Mhm.
five, don't have a lot of depth, but what do you think was the key to the Pacers beating them?
Pace, pace, and pace. I just think this is something they won't be able to do. I don't think with Oklahoma City I mean, how many throw aheads did you see in that series? I mean, how many times did the Knicks make a basket and the Pacers one pass up the floor and Siakam goes in for the layup or Neesmith? I just think they played too fast for the New York Knicks, and I think that was clearly the bottom line. The Knicks could not keep up, especially. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns had a good series, but I just think they were able to take such advantage of him defensively as well as Jalen Brunson. I just think pace was at the core of it all.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. I think Mitchell Robinson obviously was an addition to the starting five after game two, and from games three, four, five, and six, he started. And I understood why they did it because they wanted to get
Right.
some more size out there, and they're a very, aggressive offensive rebounding team. But after the first quarter, I don't know if you noticed or not, but it seemed like Mitchell Robinson really just like started wearing down, couldn't keep up with that pace, and that's when I
No.
really started seeing Pascal run out because they had Pascal guarding Mitchell Robinson, and Mitchell Robinson was guarding Pascal at different times, so they couldn't really. I think Pascal just abused that matchup there. While Robinson had 5 offensive rebounds, he didn't get any more out of the first quarter. So to me, I thought Siakam being able to be matched up with a big center like that, and even Karl Anthony Towns, someone that's not quick,
Right.
able to get right by him, running back down because New York was too focused on crashing the offensive glass. One adjustment I don't think they did a very good job on.
No, that was one of the things that I wondered about was whether they could crash the offensive glass because of the Pacers' transition ability. And yeah, they tried to crash, and Robinson did have some success. But for the most part, I thought the Pacers, except for game 5, I thought that they established the tempo in every game. And the longer that series went on, the tougher it was going to be for the Knicks. When look, that series was over after game 1. I know that sounds crazy, but the fact that Pacers could go in there and steal that one, I think it set the table for the rest of the series.
It's kind of interesting because you always talk about game one and it's like how important is a game one victory in a series, right? You could win game one and lose the next four. It really doesn't matter, so to
Sure,
say. But I do think that in this instance, game one really matters, and I want to move forward now with OKC because
sure.
this is a very tough team, and they're totally different than any team the Pacers have seen so far. So it's going to be an uphill battle. And Oklahoma City has a great fan base. I was hearing different reporters talk about it that have been around the league, and they said they've definitely got a top three fan base when it comes to just how loud the arena is, how deafening it is. And so it's going to be really difficult for Indiana to go in there and do what they've done the previous three series, and that's win the first two games, whether they're at home or on the road. So the importance of game one. Do you think that this time that they have right now to prepare for what OKC does is going to be their best chance at stealing one in Oklahoma City?
Look, I just think they need to get one, and um, I whether it's game 1 or game 2, I think game 1 might be a tough one for them. Just getting used to the defensive intensity that Oklahoma City plays with. I could see them stealing game 2, honestly, but this is going to be an immensely important preparation time for them to figure out how they're going to attack Oklahoma City. To me, it comes down to Haliburton again, and he averaged, I believe, 11 points in the 2 games they played against Oklahoma City this year. He had one game where he had 4 points, and I would think that Lou Dort is going to be in his face the entire time, and to me, he cannot afford to have those game 5 type of nights. He needs to be special every night. And I heard Kendrick Perkins saying he needs to score 30 every night. I'm like, what have you been watching, Perk? I mean, you know, I mean, give me 20 and 12. That would be fine. As long as he scores 20 points or more, the Pacers are almost impossible to beat.
Yeah, I think they're like 31 and 3 or 31 and 4,
Yeah,
something like that.
that's a
When
stat that I saw.
Yeah, so when he does score over 20, like it's a big deal, right? He hit that dagger three against the Knicks to give him like a 20-point lead, and that gave him his 21 points to get him over 20 to keep that stat going. But
Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, I think that OKC presents a lot of challenges for Tyrese because if it's not Lou Dort in the starting five, right, then you got Alex Caruso and Cason Wallace coming off the bench, and they've just got dogs that'll come in there and they'll muck it up. They'll guard him 94 feet, and it's going to be difficult for him. I'm really curious to see how he adjusts to this because one thing we have seen Rick Carlisle do and Tyrese for the most part in the playoffs, he's adjusted to different
Yes.
defensive coverages. Now, I don't know how much they're going to be able to do that against OKC, but I'm really curious to see how they do because Tyrese to me is one of the smartest players in the league, but I think there are times he is way too passive and way too
Yes.
eager, I guess you could say. It's not a great word, but to let the defense kind of just take him out of it and let someone else kind of bring the ball up and handle things.
Yeah, you've seen that when they face guard him and hold him and beat him up a little bit, he can get a little passive. I love what I loved in Game Six is he got the floater game going. I've always thought he had a terrific floater game, but you just don't see it often enough.
Yeah.
Too often you see the jump pass. I mean, obviously that's what he does all the time, but no, he needs to be super aggressive. He needs to look for his shot and do all the other things he does. But Lou Dort's going to be a really tough matchup, along with Caruso and everybody else they bring in.
Yeah, one of the things we saw Denver do that had success against OKC was playing a zone.
Zone, yeah,
Do you think
yeah,
that Indiana can afford to play a zone? Number one, because it might slow their pace down. And then number two, since OKC's already got to see this zone for 3 or 4 games against Denver, do you think that they'll be ready for it and be a little bit more prepared to break down a zone?
yeah. I think that's something you do in spots. Maybe to slow a run or whatever. I don't think that's something you can do on a semi-regular basis. I think the Pacers can guard these guys. I really do. I mean, I think Nemhard against SGA is going to be a fabulous matchup. Um, Siakam and Holmgren. I would assume that they'll deal with one another. That's going to be a great matchup. So I think the Pacers can guard these guys. To me, the issue is whether the Pacers can get out and run on these guys the way they did in New York, Milwaukee, and Cleveland.
Yeah, their half court offense to me is a little bit worrisome just compared to
Yeah,
what we've seen from their fast break offense because their half court offense at times struggled against the Knicks, and I don't
they
think the
did.
Knicks are even close to the defensive level that the Oklahoma City Thunder are. And I think you brought up Halliburton. I think it's a great point. I think it is number one in terms of the most important matchups. I think you could argue number two and number three, but I think for me, number two, I'm curious to see how Miles Turner plays in this series because if Isaiah Hartenstein is his first matchup, can the Pacers run a little bit more pick and roll with Miles and Tyrese and
Right.
maybe some pick and pop where you pull Isaiah out of the paint and maybe Miles can even shoot over him or if he wants to play drop coverage, things like that. Because I just feel like Miles, if he doesn't shoot the ball better, because I felt like he was not great against the Knicks. I thought he was okay, had some moments, but for the most part was not spectacular. I think they need almost a spectacular series from Miles Turner to really have any chance against OKC.
Well, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it seems to me he had a pretty damn good series against the Knicks last year and
Yeah.
Hartenstein. So I don't see any reason why. I mean, obviously it's a different team, it's a different approach, but I see no reason why he can't have a good series. I'll tell you what, we've talked about Miles ad nauseum on this show, and man, there's nobody I'm happier for. I just think what he's dealt with. I mean, to have the team go out and sign DeAndre Ayton to an offer sheet. I've had him traded about 25 times. I mean, good for him. He stuck it out. He didn't pout. He was unfailingly professional. And man, he's getting it done. And I think he'll have a very good series against Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yeah, they're gonna need him. They're definitely gonna need him, especially if OKC wants to attack the paint too, like just being there as a rim protector too. I think just staying out of foul trouble because he did get in foul trouble. I don't want to rely on Thomas Bryant hitting three threes
No.
to get the Pacers going for a win. But the other matchup I'm really intrigued by is Pascal. Obviously,
Yes.
what we've seen from him, like when he scored 30 points in the series against the Knicks, they won every single game. I'm not expecting him to be a 30-point scorer every single night. We did not see that very often in the regular season. It was very seldom we saw him get over 30 points per game. But I think in this series, especially if he starts out being guarded by Chet Holmgren, Chet is such a big focal point of what they do defensively.
Right.
I'll be curious to see how a veteran like Pascal, who can score in a variety of ways, kind of with a herky jerky, quick spin type move thing, how he can utilize that going up against a second year player in Chet Holmgren, who obviously played with Andrew Nemhard at Gonzaga. But I'm curious just to see how he can, utilize his veteran skills to take advantage maybe of a younger big and put him in some tough spots.
Yeah, I just don't think he's going to be able to get out and transition the way he did in the Knicks series. I think they're going to muck it up a little bit and make it more of a half court slog for the Pacers. But yeah, you're right. That's going to be a great matchup, and I think Siakam. That's one of the areas where I give the Pacers the edge, and that's one of the matchups where I think they have a significant edge actually. Siakam against Holmgren.
I won't be surprised if OKC does end up going with Holmgren at the five, guarding Miles Turner,
Hmm.
and then sliding Jalen Williams down to the four to guard Siakam. But I still would like that matchup with Siakam. We saw how he just took advantage of so many guys that were at the same size as him. So that's really fascinating to me. And then obviously Jalen Williams. This is a guy that was all NBA, and
Yeah.
Aaron Neesmith's going to have his hands full guarding him with Nemhard having to guard Shea. So I mean they just have so many weapons they can beat you with, but it's like you feel like you're talking about all these different matchups, and it's just there's so many problems that the Pacers are going to have to deal with, and they're going to have to find ways to beat them.
There are, it's funny. I was looking back. This isn't really applicable to what you were just saying, but go back to 2011. Yeah, everybody's talking about how the Pacers are what the sixth or seventh longest odds to win the NBA title in this particular series.
Hmm.
You go back and look at 2011, the team Carlisle brought to the finals with the Dallas Mavericks, and what an underdog they were to the big three Miami Heat, and they knocked off the Heat in six. And Rick made a great move in that series. He put J.J. Barea in the starting lineup, who's kind of like the T.J. McConnell of the Dallas Mavericks, and he changed that entire series. So, look, I'll tell you what, Daniel has had a really good, good run. But if I got one game to win, I'll take Rick Carlisle 100 times out of 100.
He's proven himself time and time again with what he's been able to do this postseason. I mean, the adjustments that he has made after a loss have
Yes.
just been incredible. I mean, and the way that these guys are buying in. I don't know if you saw that clip. I know Pat McAfee talked about it today on his show. He talked with Carlisle about it. But after the very first play the Pacers ran, it was where Aaron Neesmith got that wide open layup when Jalen
Yep.
Brunson came to hedge, and they threw it to Siakam in the short pick and roll, and he got Neesmith wide open for a layup. T.J. McConnell, Jarris Walker, they all went over to Coach Carlisle and kind of slapped him on the knee and pointed at him or
Yep.
clapping for him. And Carlisle just said, like TJ does it every time we design a play to start the game off with, and we execute on it. But I just think that his ability to kind of just see the weaknesses in teams' defenses, even if there aren't a lot, like there's definitely more in New York's than OKC's, but I
Right.
just feel like he knows what buttons to push and where to find holes or where to find cracks in the other team's, game plan, and be able to strategize and figure things out. I mean, that's what I think he's best at.
Whoa. Was it the Cleveland series where they went zone and that kind of screwed up the Pacers in game
Game three, they
four?
went to a
Game
3-2
three.
zone.
Yeah. And everybody's like, oh my God, they've cracked the code. Well, they came back the next game and scored about 1,000 points. They just pulled apart that zone. So yeah, look, X's and O's. I mean, Halliburton has often called Rick a savant, and he is, and he's got a great staff. And I'll tell you what, again, in that coaching matchup, I'll take Rick over a really good young coach. But Rick has been there and done that, and I have full faith in their ability to figure out a way to compete.
When you look at the other teams that OKC has faced to get here, they ran through Memphis. They
Hmm.
had a very difficult matchup against Denver that went 7 games, and they pretty much ran through Minnesota aside from one game. Do
Right.
you think that the Pacers present the biggest challenge to them, or do you think that was Denver?
No, I think the Pacers do. I just everything the Pacers bring to the table. That was a Denver team that wasn't vintage. That was, I mean, it was a good Denver team, but certainly not championship caliber. I think the Pacers are going to be a much stouter opponent than Denver. I mean, I see this series going 6 or 7. I really do. I'll save my prediction, which is sure not to come true, for later. But no, I think the Pacers are going to be their best, their toughest matchup.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think you can make the case for Denver only because they have the greatest player in the league
Right,
in
right.
Jokic, right? Indiana, they're really relying upon a team, and that to me is the biggest difference. But we kind of saw how they just took Denver out of it in that game seven. I'm really curious to see what Rick Carlisle does with his rotations because is this a series where you feel like you can play a 10-man rotation, or do you have to lean a little bit heavier on your starters, knowing that you have more days off in between games?
Right. I think that's true, and I think the fact that Oklahoma City is just as deep. I mean, you can't run these guys to death. You can't. I mean, that's going to be really interesting in game one. Is can the Pacers play at the pace they want to play? Can they establish that tempo? And I don't know. I really don't. I really don't.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast today, and they were basically just saying one of the things that helped Minnesota win that game four, I believe it was game four. I can't remember which game they won,
Mhm.
but whichever game Minnesota won, it was all the role players hitting their 3-point shots.
Right.
And
Right.
and we've seen Indiana do that at times, right? You got Miles and Aaron and Andrew and Obi and Thomas Bryant, like Ben Shepherd, like those kind of guys, Mathurin, they're gonna have to hit their shots when they're open. And if not, it's gonna make for a very long series. But I do think that with the way the Pacers shoot the basketball and how they have shot it so far in the postseason, I feel confident they can make enough shots offensively to hang with this defensive team from Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I think they can. I'll tell you what, a guy who I think is going to be real key in this series, Ben Mathurin. Ben was terrific the last two games of the series against the Knicks. Well, certainly
Four and five.
game four and five. Yeah, he was excellent, and I just think in a real grinded out type series where you need hyper athleticism and just a dog. I think that Mathurin is going to be a guy that's going to be very impactful in this series.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I feel like I've heard almost every person say that about Mathurin every series they've had this go around, just
Yeah,
because I think he's such a wild card, and I don't think it's a
he is a
wrong
wild
take,
card.
right? It's just he needs to put a consistent streak of games together, and
Yeah.
he was so bad in Game Six they had to pull him out early in the second quarter. He was really struggling defensively with what he was supposed to do, and I felt like the offense was a little bit mucked up. And Carlisle could feel that early on from him. I think
Yeah.
Carlisle has such a great pulse on what kind of performance he's going to get from Mathurin. And so that to me gives me confidence that they're going to play the best version of him because they need him to be great. They really do. But he has to rise up to the challenge and be good on both ends because if he's not good defensively,
Yeah.
Rick won't play him.
No, that's the truth. Rick doesn't play around. Um, no, you're right about Mather in Game Six. I misspoke. I meant games four and five and six. He struggled, but um, I just think he's a good matchup in this Oklahoma City series. If they can get production from him, I think Nemhard's going to be dealing with Shea. So I don't know how much he's going to have left offensively, but yeah, again, I come back to Mather, and I just think he's the ultimate wild card in this series. Just as I mean, yeah, he's the big wild card.
Yeah, I would say that Shea gets the nod for being like this tough nosed defender when I don't necessarily think he's actually as good of a defender as they've made him out to be. I think he has a lot of great pieces around him that helps him kind of be like an off ball defender that can play well. I'll be interested to see how the Pacers go at him, make him defend because
Right.
that to me could be very beneficial if especially if he doesn't play up to the level people act like he is. They could get him in foul trouble or get him in spots where he's not comfortable, try to kind of hunt him a little bit more on switches. That to me could be a key as well. I'm really curious to see what a lot of different Oklahoma people have to say about this team and this matchup just because they're seeing this team every single game. And I feel
Right.
like I am not fully accustomed or that's not the right word. I don't feel like I'm fully understanding of what this team does. So
Right.
I'm going off what I've seen the Pacers do, and they're both 12-4 in the playoffs. They both have had different challenges to get here. But I would say if you think about who the players the Pacers have had to face, you could make a case that Indiana's had a
Tougher
tougher
road,
tougher road
no
than
doubt.
OKC.
No doubt. I mean, you're dealing with Giannis in the first round. You're dealing with a 64-win Cleveland team in the second round, and a Knicks team that's been built for the long haul. And you beat them all, and you beat them. You win in five and five and in six. So yeah, I think obviously OKC having to deal with Denver. But I didn't, I didn't think this is a great version of the Denver Nuggets. Certainly not like championship team. Didn't have the depth. Um, but yeah, the Pacers. I think they've had a sterner challenge, and they've risen to that challenge better than anybody left in the playoffs.
Absolutely, Bob. Well, I do not have too much else to say. But I
Okay.
know you're not going to give your predictions. I don't want you to give me your prediction, but what do you think the Pacers have to do? The most important thing they have to do to win this series, and what do you think is the biggest challenge that OKC presents?
They got to run. They got to rebound. Uh, I don't think they're going to be able to depth them to death,
Hmm.
because Oklahoma City's got a ton of depth as well. But I think they've got to establish that breakneck pace. Biggest challenge is going to be Shea. I mean, Nemhard's a terrific defender. Did a great job against Brunson in Game 6. But I think slowing down Shea and keeping Hartenstein off the board. I think rebounding is also going to be really key in this series.
I do have one more question because I'm curious about this. We've
Mhm.
seen Donovan Mitchell get his. We've seen Giannis get his. We saw Brunson for the most part get his. Is there a world where they can say, "Hey, Shea, get yours," but we're going to try to shut down the others?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jalen Williams has been a little inconsistent in this series. I mean, he's had some dud games. I think if you can keep him down, keep Hartenstein out of the lane with those floaters, Holmgren. I think Holmgren's going to get his, but he averages what 15 points a game, so he's not going to blow you up. Yeah, yeah, I think that's. Yeah, I think keeping the other guys down the way they did with all three teams they faced so far, I think that's really key.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, but I think if you can keep Shea off the free throw line and
Right.
still allow him to get his 30 points, but just make him work for it, that's probably your best bet to beat this team. So they've got a lot of great players. They got a really good team that's assembled, and I like a lot of their pieces. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited for it. I'm so happy for the Pacers to be in this spot.
This is
Final
great.
two. I mean,
This
it's
is
something
great, man.
I never expected this, to be honest with you.
No, I thought they could get deep in the playoffs. I thought Cleveland was going to beat them. But going into the season, I thought they were a team that could return to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they've exceeded every conceivable expectation. I never would have thought that. I thought it was Boston or Cleveland coming into the season, and the Pacers have not just overachieved. I mean, they haven't just. I don't want to say they've overachieved. I mean, they were an Eastern Conference finalist last year and gave Boston a hell of a run, even though it was a sweep. But I kind of saw that once they got past that slow start. I mean, they're the second best team in the NBA since January 1st, second only to OKC.
Yep, it's a great point, and like you said, I never expected it. I did as a little bit of delusion, but I did think they could be the Cleveland Cavaliers. I did not believe in Cleveland this season,
Okay.
even though they had a great regular season. There was just something about them, like prove it to me. They've always kind of struggled in the playoffs with this group, and I was like, I know Kenny Atkinson's been there before as a coach, but I just trust Rick Carlisle in these moments, and I thought they matched up well with the style of play. So that was to me a matchup I thought Indiana would be favored in, but if they were to play Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals and Tatum would have been healthy, I don't think I would have picked Indiana to beat Boston.
No.
I think I would have probably picked Boston to win in 6 or 7 because I feel like, that's just a respect of a champion. But the
Mhm.
fact that they got the Knicks, I felt pretty confident they could beat New York.
I did too. I thought they would win in seven. I thought they would go back in the garden and break their hearts again,
That would have been a
just for
little bit more
fun.
epic, but I'm glad
Yeah,
we were there to see it in person
yeah, that was pretty cool.
in front of the home fans. So, Bob, thank you so much for your time. This has been a lot of fun talking about this upcoming series against OKC and then reflecting a little bit on what the Pacers just did to get here. So, people can find you at Bob Kravitz on Twitter, and they can also find all of your work at bobkravitz.com. Is there anything you'd like to plug that you'll have on the website?
No, I'm gonna head on down to Oklahoma City for games 1 and 2, and I'm excited about getting back on the road.
All right. Is there a place like a go-to spot in Oklahoma City you eat
I
at?
have no idea. I've been all over the world. I've never been to Oklahoma City.
I will say, I did have friends that lived in Oklahoma City, and Brahms is like the big thing down there. It's
Brahms?
Brahms, Braums. It's kind of like their fast food chain down there that's pretty popular.
Okay.
So you'll have to try it and let me know and give me a review when you come back on the pod.
All right. It'll be like one of those pizza reviews or something. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll do one for you.
Yeah, I don't know what all food they have there. I think they're known for their ice cream. I don't know if you're an ice cream guy or not, but
What does it look like to you, Alex?
I'm not gonna answer that, Bob. Okay. I've seen you eat okay at the games. You're like, I'm not gonna eat too much.
No, I'm pretty well. I watch myself a little bit.
Yeah, you're self-disciplined. I mean,
Yeah, that's
with both
me.
of our heart conditions, we have to be a little bit.
Yeah, our bodies are a temple.
They definitely are. So, Bob, I do appreciate your time and thank you for
All right,
always
buddy.
being so kind to me whenever we're at the games. I do not take it for granted. So, thank you for your kindness and have safe travels to Oklahoma City and enjoy.
Sounds good, buddy. Enjoy the series.
Thanks, Bob.